Hello and welcome to CEO Insights, the program that interviews managing directors and heads of industry here in Vietnam. I am your host and my name is Leon Shears, and I'm absolutely delighted today to say that as my guest we have Mr. Douglas Barnes, who is the British Consul General and the Director of UK Trade and Investment. Welcome, Douglas.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy diary to be here with us today. My first question is nearly always the same, and that is, why Vietnam? In your case, it's slightly different because you probably got posted here rather than selected it as a venue.
Well, why Vietnam? This goes back actually to 2006 when I first visited Vietnam. I led a business delegation here and I visited Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, and I have to say I fell in love with the place. So I thought any opportunity I get in the future to return here, then I would grab it. It so happens that 4 years ago I was completing my posting in Beijing, and this post came up which I applied for and I was successful. So that's why I've ended up here.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've enjoyed your time here?
Absolutely. It's been the perfect posting. The work has been fantastic and interesting. The people are just so warm and friendly, and the actual environment in which we live and work is exactly what I like, because I like the heat, I like the tropical environment, and it's just exactly what I like here.
Right. So how did you first get into the diplomatic service? Although I don't think you started there, but that's where you are now.
Well, I'm a career civil servant. Right. So I left from studying and went straight into the Home Civil Service in the UK, working in the Department of Trade and Industry. So for the past 30 years, I have been working with British businesses in some capacity. Right. About 8 years ago, I took the step of applying to join the diplomatic service to work initially in Beijing. Okay. And obviously I was successful, and I spent 4 very productive and enjoyable years in Beijing, which has now led me to here, and I will be leaving here in March next year. Right. And I'm remaining in the region. I'll be going on to Myanmar.
Yes, I heard. That sounds exciting, because that's like Vietnam a good few years ago in terms of development opportunity.
Absolutely. It's a particularly interesting place because, as you know, over the years, certainly over the past 25 years, things have been fairly stagnant because of the political situation there, which has recently changed in 2010 and started to open up. And then, of course, the election just last month, which has brought in the new party, who will take over as government as from March next year. And so it's exactly, and so I'm really excited because you're absolutely right in terms of the stage of development. In fact, I was in Myanmar just last weekend, just doing a familiarization visit. Very impressed with what's there. The local business community are all excited about what the future holds. And so I see it's going to be very challenging, but it's going to be also very successful.
Right, that's good news. That's good news for Myanmar and for the UK. So you've served in, was it mainly the UK and then China, then Vietnam, or have you been to other countries?
I've served in South Africa. I was in Johannesburg back in 1996. And I have traveled to many countries. In one of my jobs where I was based in London, but I led business delegations, including when I came here in 2006. Yeah.
And how is it, because I've not done this, but how is it jumping from culture to culture? Because Johannesburg is slightly different to London, which is slightly different to Beijing, which is slightly different to Vietnam, and now you're going to have a completely new culture.
And that's one of the real benefits and really what I enjoy most about the job. It does give me the opportunity to learn and experience these different cultures, and particularly understanding from a business perspective how UK companies, for example, needs to react in dealing with these different cultures. So it's something that I've always wanted to do because I enjoy traveling immensely, and so it was actually a conscious decision to get into this diplomatic service to enable me to do the kind of job I'm doing now.
Do you find that in these different cultures they end up by saying, oh, yes, we know about business, but we're different in Vietnam, or we're different in China, when actually a lot of the protocols should be almost exactly the same?
I think there is always something unique about a country in terms of the business culture. For example, when I was in Beijing, I had to adjust to the dynamics of doing business there, particularly in engaging with the ministries and the close connection between the ministries and businesses. So that actually helped to prepare me when I came here, because I knew exactly that. But even so, you then have to also understand the Vietnamese approach to business in general, regardless of the dynamics being similar, but culturally, locally, you still got to adjust to that.
Yes, well, that's the same everywhere, really, isn't it? Meeting new people is, yeah, yeah. What in your role as business development, what pitfalls would you point out to UK companies potentially coming into Vietnam? How would you advise them to get off to a good start?
To get off to a good start, you need to understand the local business. If a UK company is looking to set up a partnership with a local company, they need to understand how the sector that they are in, how that actually is operating in market, the type of relationship you need to establish, how often you need to visit the market, how well you need to get to know your potential partner. I think those are key things to understand, and coming back to the whole thing about the cultural aspect of all of it.
In Vietnam, it is very much relationships, isn't it?
Absolutely. Across Asia, that is the case. For example, just this week I've seen an email from a UK company who have been trying to communicate with a potential partner here in Vietnam, but hasn't had any reply. And we had to go back to say, well, sorry, but it's quite common that you're not going to get any sort of negotiations and in relationship going over an email. You need to be here. So.
Yes, yes. You need to visit the inevitable coffee shop, where most of the business seems to be done. Moving on to one of your favourite subjects, the British Business Group in Vietnam, BBGV, and that development. How do you see that progressing from here?
When I first arrived here in 2012, the BBGV was at a stage where it had existed for nearly 20 years, a very effective business group supporting its members, but mainly focusing on the sort of social networking type of activities, and also supporting charities, which is obviously very important. My team, UK Trade and Investment Vietnam, have been working, me personally, with the BBGV over the past 2 or 3 years to try to enhance their capabilities so that they provide more of a wider range of business support to British companies. And that's going really well. They have responded very positively to that. They're building their capacity to work in partnership with UK Trade and Investment to support UK companies. And I see this as continuing to grow over the years, because it's an important element of the UK government's policy to support British chambers overseas to work in partnership with UK companies, with UK trade and investment to support UK companies so that we can have more exports coming through to Vietnam.
Has there been an increase in the number of companies in the UK looking to Vietnam? And how was the recent visit of the Prime Minister?
There definitely has been an increase. For example, when I arrived here in 2012, on average you'd get perhaps 1 or 2 trade missions coming from the UK. This is a trade delegation of businesses trying to do business in Vietnam. By 2013 that had gone up to 5 or 6. Now on occasions we have as much as 8 of those trade missions. And that's on top of the individual inquiries that we're getting coming through on a regular basis. The Prime Minister's visit last July was unique and really has raised the bar for us in our relationship with Vietnam, our bilateral relationship. Historically, we've had a 5-year strategic partnership agreement in place with the Vietnamese government covering bilateral trade. And so the fact that we now had our first visit from a serving British Prime Minister visit was huge. It opened a lot of doors and particular areas of business that we're keen to really progress.
And those areas are?
In the aerospace sector, we've done a lot of work with Rolls-Royce. In this financial services sector, we did a lot of work with Prudential. In the advanced engineering sector, we did a lot of work with a company called Zincox, who are looking to introduce environmental technology to recycle hazardous waste from the from the steel industry. So, and all of those were major potential investment and exports for the UK.
So, Mr. David coming over was a good idea.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he was welcomed not just by the British business community, but also, and more importantly, by the Vietnamese government and the business in general. I think it, as I said, it actually raised our profile here, but it's also attracted a lot more UK companies who are now looking at coming to Vietnam. As part of his delegation when he arrived here, he brought 30 UK companies, senior CEOs of various UK companies, which again was an indication of the importance that...
Yes. Because I read in sort of the financial industrial press the increased interest that the UK government has, and for that to bear fruition, that's good, and especially having someone like the Prime Minister makes all the difference. So where should UK businesses, which door should they first knock on when they want to come here?
I would say we have a UK trade and investment network in the UK, and they then make referrals to my team here. So if they are looking to get more advice about exports, then it should be at that level, the International Trade Directors Network, which are throughout England, all 9 of our regions. But if they're looking to come directly to Vietnam, then it will be my team, UK Trade and Investment, and we have 2 locations, our embassy in Hanoi and the Consulate General in Ho Chi Minh City.
Are you saying that people shouldn't just get on a plane and come down and have a look, or?
I am definitely saying that. It's never a good idea just to do that, because that can often be a waste of money. These companies that do that aren't sure about what the opportunities really are for them, and B, if they don't understand the culture which we discussed, the opportunities, etc., it could be more recipe for the disaster, basically. So we always encourage companies to let us know of their interest. We can then provide, even if it's just general information, which will give them some guide as to what potential there is for their companies.
And what, apart from the development of the BBG business group, what other developments does the UK government have in store for us that we can look forward to having more help or more cooperation?
Well, within my team, we are focusing on a number of large projects, infrastructure projects, for example. We're also targeting sectors which we know can offer high-value opportunities for UK companies. So the UK government is also offering what we call UK export finance to support exports as well of services as well as goods to Vietnam. So for example, a UK company who wins a contract for, I don't know, £2 million, that export can be covered by export credit loan, which is a very low commercial rate, which would allow the recipient of the product in Vietnam to benefit from a longer term in actually paying. And the UK guarantees the payment.
Right, okay. Actually, that should be really useful.
It is.
Because it's real, isn't it? It's not a report or something out
real.
there.
And it's operated through recognized banks. It's not the UK government physically presenting that loan. They provide the guarantee, but the bank actually offers the loan. But I think what's lacking is that it's not promoted enough. So that's something that we're now trying to address.
Right, right. And an interesting question: what can the Vietnamese government do to encourage more two-way business between Vietnam and the UK?
I think in recent years, I've certainly seen an increase in bilateral sort of relationship. For example, the Vietnamese ambassador in London is very proactive. His background is from the Vietnam Chambers of Commerce,
right,
VCCI.
Okay. So he's a businessman, not a politician.
Businessman,
yeah.
Yes. And that background, he's been very proactive in engaging with UK businesses and encouraging the bilateral relationship that you're referring to. And I think that's absolutely essential. We also have a group being led by a former ambassador, the UK ambassador to Vietnam in the UK, called UK Friends of Vietnam. And they have been working very hard to engage with the Vietnamese through the embassy, so that, for example, when there are high-level delegations coming from Vietnam to the UK, they help to host and organize programs, etc. So there are quite a few different areas where I think the Vietnamese government have been very proactive in increasing that relationship.
And the one thing they're not doing?
I think there is the one weakness I have spotted in my time here in terms of Vietnamese government trying to attract, for example, investment from the UK. I think their project development and the way they sell their projects is quite poor. I think they could do with some professional expertise in actually helping them to develop a more compelling proposition than they offer at the moment.
That's what we were talking about earlier, communication. Yeah, because that's so important. Going back to Douglas and your family, perhaps, but you're rushing off to Myanmar next March, and you'll be there for a posting, however long that is. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
In 5 years' time, I should be back in the UK because the posting to Myanmar will be for 4 years. So by then, I'm pretty certain that I won't continue a full posting somewhere. So I will be back in London. As regards my family, just my wife is here with me. We have a couple of sons, but they're grown up, so they're back in the UK, doing their own thing. But of course, they visit on a regular basis. Yeah.
Because it is a strain, even for regular expats, let alone someone in your position, on the family, all this sort of distance and moving around. But if they're grown up and fled the nest, well, that's okay. Is there anything that you'd like to add to what we've talked about? Any particular point?
The only thing I would say is, based on the fact that I am due to leave in the next 3 months, just to say how much I've enjoyed working in Vietnam. I can see all the changes that the government are putting in place. And I'm particularly impressed with the fact that they've signed these very key international treaties, the ASEAN Economic Community, the FTP, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Free Trade Agreement with the EU. These, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years, are going to transform Vietnam into challenging as a major economic.
Because what I've always found is that the people here are entrepreneurial, hardworking, and most importantly, I think, they're so willing to learn. They want to take on new information in new ways. So that's good.
I thoroughly enjoyed my time here, and I look forward. I will be keeping a very close eye on developments. Not being so far away, I will pop back from time to time. I hold a real strong belief that UK bilateral trade, in particular, trade and investment with Vietnam will continue to grow. For example, just this year, our exports have gone up 15% at the end of the third quarter, end of September. And that's an indication. Last year it was 12% growth this year, so it's continuous on the increase.
Douglas, thank you very much for taking time out today. And this ends this session of CEO Insights. I do hope you've enjoyed the programme. I certainly have, and I hope to see you next time. This is Leon Shears saying thank you and goodbye. Thank you.